Okay, folks. Well, once again, thanks so much for those of you who frequently watch my Beyond the Gates content and leave just just positive reviews. Hey Jeremy, you're so good at this. You say exactly what I'm thinking. Or sometimes you all add some perspective that I didn't catch. Like, hey, this reminds me of this particular soap opera or whatever, and it really does do wonders in terms of maintaining my interest in continuing to watch and review the show, knowing that you all enjoy it. So just wanted to thank you all for that. This is episode 156, and I think it was a little better than I think. Low key, probably the best episode of the week thus far. This week hasn't really been doing it for me, but this was okay. I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. Yeah. All right, so make sure you take a moment to like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. And side note, earlier today I sat down and I finally recorded several videos that I need to take my time and edit. But this will be content for my new channel, Exploring My Faith. I promoted it, I believe, in the community tab about a week or so ago. But that channel, I hope to have it launched very soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Alright, so we start off in the country club with Leslie and Peaches out about town. And they bump into Nicole, and of course Leslie will not waste a moment to try to talk trash. And she basically goes on and on about the divorce and rubs it in her face and says, I will be the next Richardson. I'm taking that last name for myself. And I plan to be a lot more stylish than you. Which Nicole says, well, best of luck. Doesn't bother me. What's that expression? Water off, running off duck's back. She claims that, you know what? There's nothing you can do that'll ever bother me. So then she bounces. And once she leaves, she has to stop and take a breath because even though she, composed herself in front of the ops after she walked away, she's like, oh, okay, that took a lot out of me. So Peaches and Leslie sit to eat, but Leslie complains about the food, which is in sharp contrast to earlier that day when she gave her compliments to the chef about the bacon. But no, her distaste or dissatisfaction isn't with the food, is that she wasn't able to get under Nicole's skin. Because trust and believe, if she was able to leave Nicole rattled as she was leaving the country club, oh, she would have enjoyed every single leaf from the lettuce or the little small tomatoes. Oh, she would have been gushing like this was the best salad she had ever eaten. But her mom says, you know what, honey, money does not buy you class. That alone was a 10 out of 10 scene. But she calls out her daughter for saying, I know you're angry because you weren't able to further humiliate that poor woman. And that's when Leslie tells her to spare her a lecture and tries to force some salad down her throat in order to get her to shut up. But then that's when her mama starts choking, saying, I don't want a doctor. I just want to go home. Man, that's some rough stuff. So we go over to the casino where, let me just put it simply, Vanessa wants in. She doesn't want to be a Randy going around beating up people for money. No, she wants to use her full potential. Basically, she wants to be Joey's equal. But Joey's like, yeah, it's safer if we keep things as is, But Vanessa keeps pushing. But that's when Joey's like, look, I'm being rather coy about the danger. I'm telling you that what you think you want isn't what you really want. I want the danger. Well, the thing is, danger for me means I eliminate all threats. Does that include Doug? Didn't I tell you I had nothing to do with his death? And that's when she's giving off the vibes that Joey picks up on in terms of, I don't think you know what it means to be as cautious as I am. And that's when her son Donnell is brought into the conversation, given the fact that, well, your son came around here before, as you know, and he wanted to know, like, what's the connection between us. And Vanessa doesn't understand what Donnell has to do with this. And Joey thinks that, look, if you step up to be my equal, you're going to gain a reputation about town. And guess what? Reputation spread, and eventually your son is going to hear about it. And are you willing to risk your son's faith in you? And that's when she's like, let me worry about him. I want what I want. So she kisses him and walks out. Now, I'm wondering two things. Number one, dang, Vanessa, are you just that terrible of a mom? You don't care if your son or daughter finds out about you being a mob boss wife? Or two, is she coercing Joey to bring her deeper into the operation so she can gather intel and then use that against Joey to be the one to bring him down? That's possibly it. But I'm going to be honest here. I don't want to give her that much credit because she's always been on this reckless streak. So it fits her character to want this. But you got to give Joey some credit. He's warning her that it's not what you think it is. But she don't care. So we go over to Uptown, and Eva's on the phone when she overhears a guy at the next table cursing at his pen for not working. And ain't that the truth? A pen just never works when you need it to, similar to a printer. So she's stunned that, he's even using one of those and offers to hand over her own. Yeah, when I watch the scene, I'm like, that's pretty accurate. Most people either type what they want to say, they use like voice to text or whatever the case may be, but I'm a pen user, not a pencil user. I don't even know if I own a pencil. I haven't even held a pencil for years, but in terms of pens, I go through them because, well, I take notes on these shows. But it turns out that he's someone who helps people submit applications to schools, which I like because I was an academic advisor for 3 years before I started YouTube, and I know what that's like, helping people get it, situated in school and whatnot. And he's from the area, but he's been living in the Pacific Northwest. So Izaiah, of course, is, we know, Jacob's brother. But they talk for a bit, and she talks about how she works for her father and she loves it. And he says, like, yeah, what I do now is fulfilling, and I'm not in it for the money or anything. And that's when he asks her about, some local hotspots. And that's when she gets a text from her mama and has to run. But she says, you know what? Maybe I'll run into you sometime at one of these hotspots, and you can give me my pen back the next time we see each other. And also going back to what Izaiah said about fulfilling in his work, getting a sense of purpose from it. That was one of my main things too when I was an academic advisor. Aside from it being at a school I went to, and I kind of knew how some things work, but it was eye-opening to get behind the scenes for a change. But I know for me, when I became an academic advisor, I said I wanted to be the best advisor I could be, because when I had an academic advisor in school, I had like 4 different ones that kept changing. But I was one of those students that went above and beyond to figure out how many credits I can get towards as many degrees and majors as possible. So by the time I graduated, I had a bachelor's, an associate's, and a minor in the time that it would take someone to get a bachelor's. Well, actually, no, I got it in 3 years. So essentially, I figured out how to do it, and I mapped things out for grad school too. I sent my advisor like a very detailed email, like, hey, you know what? So I did some research and X, Y, and Z. I'm just, paraphrasing. And I'll never forget her responding and said, Jeremy, I'm sorry, but did you have a question? And I never went to see her again. I never responded to that email because I'm like, I went as in depth as possible. Because look, if you follow my content on my other channel and this one, when I get into a subject, I get into it. Now, my email wasn't filled with tangents and stuff. It was basically me mapping out, hey, here are like 2-degree plans I was looking at based on my calculations. And if you double check, would I be able to finish a master's in 2.5 years? And I never responded because she that just cut me down. Like, you didn't care. I did your job for you. I'm just asking you to double check it and confirm. You said no. So I said, if I ever become an academic advisor, which I did, be the best advisor to the students you can be. And I was. So I get it. And plus I said, even after I do a job after working for Liberty, regardless of what it is, I can have a little peace in my soul knowing I spent time helping people get closer to achieving their academic dreams. So then we go over to Eva getting to, technically her apartment. Oh yeah, that's right, because Leslie, Well, anyway, so Leslie's freaking out because of all the coughing Peaches was doing, and they were fighting when it started. Yeah, whose fault was that, Leslie? And that's when Eva gets on her about, what are you doing arguing with a dying woman? And that's when Leslie says, like, this reminded me of only the sad fact I only have so much time with my mom. And she sees how frail and weak she is. And that's when it brought it all home for her. She practically had to carry her home. So due to the fact that she's too sick to take care of herself. And it's like her and her mom have switched places. Like she's the parent and her mom is the child. And Eva tells her that, well, that's how it is, and you're not alone through this. They'll be able to get through this together. Now, here's my thing. Leslie, this is what ruins the Leslie character for me. When you have moments like this where it seems like she's starting to understand, yeah, I need to shape up because, things aren't what they seem. While I'm winning in one area of life, I'm failing in another. And maybe this could be eye-opening to the fact of not just her and Eva, I need to get myself together because I don't want my daughter to look at me the same way I looked at my mom tonight when I got into it with her over something so minuscule as trying to get under Nicole's skin. I didn't need to do that. And then Eva could use it as an opportunity to be like, okay, I don't want to be like my mom, and I don't want us to be Leslie and Peaches when she gets older. So she needs to shape up. But I don't know. These scenes were good, but at the same time, it's like, will it even matter? Like by Friday's episode, will Leslie be right back to her usual self like nothing happened? So we go over to... But yeah, let's talk about it now. Jacob and Naomi. So he just tells Naomi he feels a type of way, and he's as sad as she is happy. Sad that the baby, there wasn't one. She's happy that she's not pregnant. And he's upset because, we're supposed to tell each other everything. And to kind of piggyback off of episode 155 review, I forgot that, oh yeah, that's messed up. Naomi didn't say anything about the not being a baby until after they had sex. And even worse is that she didn't tell Jacob. Jacob opened the laptop and saw it, and it's like, what? So she mentions how she wasn't ready to tell Jacob because she knew a fight would break out from it. And he's like, look, there's nothing to fight about, and I'm not angry. And even when he tries to lighten the mood with some jokes, she's not laughing. She's upset that he's disappointed, but won't be offended if he needs to mourn. And they hug it out, and that's when they start making out. And that's when she stops it, going like, look, you know what? We need to stop, because us making out, having sex can't be the answer to everything. Because even though this puzzles him, she makes the good point of, we use sex to avoid talking. That is very valid, and I will give her points for pointing that out. But then I'm like, Naomi, have you looked at yourself recently? You can't blame the guy. Okay. But then again, constant sex is how you got into this pregnancy scare in the first place. So just throwing that out there. Now, she feels like this whole scenario has opened up the Pandora's box, and we're facing a reality that scares me, because you're always going to wonder what it's like to be a father. And that's when he's like, well, look, remember when you convinced me not to get a tattoo because I might change my mind about it one day? And that's when she's like, well, neither of them will ever change their mind about this scenario. And he brings up the very accurate fact that they're strong-willed people with strong convictions, but I don't see myself resentment coming between them. Even though technically it did when Naomi resented Jacob for arresting her mom and made him sleep on the couch, but just saying. But that's when Naomi brings up the fact that this is like, black and white, and you can't deny that she's denying him something he wants. But let's just say, for simplicity's sake, Jacob was 100% honest when he said, you know what, Naomi, that's fine. If you don't want children, I don't want children. Let's say that he meant it when he said it before they got married. But when she said, I'm pregnant, him being happy about it, I don't think should be used against him, because he loves you so much that making the baby together and bringing a life into the world will bring you closer together. So I don't really, like I said in another video, if Jacob was angry that, how can you get pregnant? I thought you was your protection. well, I forgot to take my pill because Chelsea was missing it. What are we supposed to do now? I don't want this kid. See, you see how different it would be? Man. So that's when he says, look, parenthood just isn't my destiny. And I believe in love, our love. And let's not forget our vows. So I signed up for the ride that doesn't include kids. And that's all I know. Now, whether or not Naomi's going to be okay with this, I don't know. But whatever. So we go over to Anita, who's ticked off at Vernon because he's flirting with a potential donor. And he shows her to the door. So that's when he tells his wife, you don't know how much of a turn on it is to see you jealous like that. And it's like, that woman is not worth getting jealous over. I'm just annoyed right now. So he starts groaning. And before these two can get to it, Nicole actually pops up on him and says, hey, I'm sorry about dragging Leslie into your lives. And it's like, baby, it's not your fault that Leslie was brought into our lives. That's Ted. And that's when she feels like, you know what? After everything I just went through, I'm not going to let her get under my skin. So after Nicole's like, yep, I'm not letting her under my skin, that's when construction is heard from across the street. And Vernon goes out there to see what's going on and comes back and says, so apparently Leslie is paying the workers top dollars so they work longer hours. And that's when he's like, I'm about to send private security over there. Now, my first instinct is I'm pretty sure construction has some laws on the times in which they can do the loud construction work, especially during the nighttime. But when you have money, I guess, the rules are bent. And that's when Anita tells Nicole that, you know what, hey, don't worry about it in terms of the funding for the trust because I cut it off completely. Leslie is not getting another cent from me. Now, the thing is, I wonder if the writer is ever going to give a specific amount as to how much because, well, no, let me backtrack. I wonder if Leslie is going to find out, hey, the end of the trust is here. Here's how much money you have left. Or they're going to let it blow up in her face by her just going out here spending money like it's nobody's business, thinking a next check is going to come. But then when she doesn't get a visit from a banker or an attorney with a check, she's going to come up short. So I guess that could be her downfall. Who knows? But from there, Nicole talks to her parents about going to the diner to sit with Ted and talk it out one last time. And despite being sad, I'm moving on and I feel a bit more free since Leslie is not a problem anymore. Even though anytime you come to visit your parents, I'm pretty sure Leslie is going to have a megaphone, making her presence known. So there's that. Now, after she leaves, Vernon, admires her strength, but that's when Anita knows that, Nicole just put on an act to look tough for her parents. But she's like, if we give her some space, I feel like she might get better. So that's when they run to the elevator to get freaky in the bedroom. And I'm just like, they're getting frisky on the elevator. Yep, I see where Kat gets it from in the closet with Tomas. Just like Grandma Anita. But in terms of Nicole, it is kind of sad because I wonder how many times in the past she pretended to be okay and not let something get to her, even though she was probably dying on the inside, just because she felt she needed to look tough for her parents. And that's really, really tragic. So to wind things down, Nicole is drinking at Uptown and runs into Shanice, who looks amazing, by the way, and it's not often we see her outside of her hospital attire, so good to see her. Foreshadowing, because her and Ted are supposed to have something going on later. And then Nicole actually calls Carlton. That's a tongue twister. Nicole calls Carlton over to Uptown, and they cuddle, in order to help her feel better. So that's how the episode winds down. But folks, thanks so much for tuning in. Leave your thoughts on the episode in the comments below. And like I said, please keep your eyes peeled and notifications on because hopefully I will be launching my new channel very soon.